Greasy hair is your lifestyle. It's a personal choice. Can't really do much about it, can you now? How are you doing the Herbert the Pervert voice again? Genius. Genius, yeah, that has never definitely been heard before on this podcast. You sexy page. Hi, hello, you are now looped into the world of BAM. Yeah, and I know that my mouth movement is a bit weird when I do this voice. I'm your host, Maya, and this is by all means necessary. As a next Halloween costume, I will be dressed as Herbert the Pervert from Family Guy. We are gonna make that show popular again. You see the problem with Herbert the Pervert? Yeah, wow, luckily for you, I will not stick to this voice for the next hour. You see, the problem with Herbert the Pervert is that it only works with the words with an S. Sexy pants, smartish, it only works with like the words with S. The other words aren't as fabulous. That's why he uses the word. That's why Seth MacFarlane or whatever his name is makes the word sexy come out of Herbert the Pervert's mouth a lot. Yeah, hi, yes. So this is by all means necessary. If nobody understood that, I am your host Maya, and if you're watching on YouTube, you get this joke. It doesn't even taste nice. We also back home in Serbia have this rapper whose name is Corona, and I mean he chose that rapper name before Corona. Imagine if he chose it just because of COVID. He was like, no, I'm brave. And he came out with an interview telling us all, telling the world, or whoever would listen, because he's not like that famous, says the girl with like 5 subscribers. So he told the world how he will not be changing his rapper name due to the current pandemic. No, he is brave enough to stick to his name, even though the pandemic is changing the world. So hey, I thought you wanted that unnecessary piece of information. Beyond that, I just wanted to check in because this week I'm technically gonna be doing the lazy thing where I will play for you a YouTube video from last meals that I have done about a week ago. And that is for multiple reasons. One of the reasons is that this case is mad and has to be told and shared on as many channels as humanly possible because it's wild. It includes voodoo magic, it has a Latin lover, it has a woman that just was obsessed with her weight and didn't realize that her weight is not the problem, her personality is the problem, like her whole life. Legitness. It has children and she does weird things with those children. I feel sorry for the children, to be honest. So yeah, that's me just spoiling it completely for you straight away, the whole episode. But another reason why I'm not fully committing to the research for this Monday is that instead of a mini-sode, I'm gonna bring you a full flex episode. It's an insane one. And it has its own category. Like, it doesn't belong as the last episode of the month. It doesn't fit in with like the theme of the month. It has never been, it's a crime that has never been committed. I do not understand why it has committed. So of course I need to like dig into it because this podcast has definitely been created for that particular reason. If there has ever been a by all means necessary, it's coming at you this Friday. So stick around. If you haven't subscribed yet, fucking subscribe because you've got 2 crazy cases this week. It's a crazy month. Also, I wanted to check in because this is now getting to the level of content that I'm being exposed to that I'm actually considering doing a full mini-sode. Let me know in the comments or just DM me if you think like this would actually make for a good mini-sode. That is TikTok and true crime. Obviously, there's a viral case of TikTokers who have discovered like a body in a suitcase through this like geocaching. It's called geocaching games, kind of like the Pokemon Go, where they go and like discover different treasures and stuff like as part of the game. And well, they have exposed that to TikTok. I think that was kind of removed, but obviously different true crime YouTubers and stuff have covered this case. Then there is obviously the case of Sarah Turney, who I love that what she has done, but I hate that she had to go to that stage to do this for her sister Alyssa Turney, and that she had to turn to YouTube because she already had podcasts, she already interviewed on so many cases, just because the police didn't sort of believe her before this that one of her family members is involved in the disappearance of her sister, and that the trace has just gone cold. Till again, she made people aware and she just persisted at it until an arrest has been made this year in 2020. And then finally, the one that I have actually discovered this week through my favorite murder podcast, and that's of this survivor, Kara Robinson Chamberlain, who is also sort of answering the FAQs, the most popular questions, like the questions that the media asked her before, and she's answering them all on YouTube, as well as like documenting her fitness journey, giving advice on like for females running in public. It is quite literally everything from like what she has done to cope later, how it made her go and actually work with the police force, to her basically giving advice of how to speak to survivors, what to say, what not to say. The one that I have watched today came as a reply to one of her comments, and that was, what did she think about the ends? Kara's case, in short, was when she was 15 or 16 years of age, she has been kidnapped by this guy. He put like a gun to her head, put her in some plastic container in her car, kidnapped her, took her to the flat where he like raped her for the night, but she managed to escape. She managed to get out of the handcuffs. She remembered different things from the room. She was just like, she's a true crime freaking fanatic if there was ever one. She is a fucker, yes. And you really need to change the name of the fans for this podcast. Really need to do it. So she remembered all of the details, and then when she finally got through the door and legged it and went to the police at first actually didn't believe her, thought that she was a runaway. She again addresses this in the videos. And obviously, when they went to the flat, he was already gone. But she remembered in the flat that they had like this comb or this brush with like long red hair. And then they spoke to like the building manager. And the building manager was like, oh, yep, this is the actual flat in the building complex. And this is the guy. And then once the police actually caught up to him, he committed suicide, the nicest way to say that. So people obviously ask Kara, like, what does she think about him actually committing suicide?
Hi guys! I am multitasking, but I saw this question come up this morning and I realized that I don't think I've ever answered it in a video. I know I've answered it in comments, but I can't remember. So, how did I feel when my captor committed suicide? Well, initially I was 16, right? So I was pretty angry that he wasn't going to have his day in court because I wanted him to sit across from me in a courtroom and know that choosing me was his biggest mistake. But since then, I've realized that it really is the best thing that could have happened because not only did I not have to go through the three-ring circus that can be a court trial sometimes, and divulging all the details of what happened, I don't have to ever have to worry about him getting out of jail. I have several friends whose captors are up for parole or are out, and it's heart-wrenching to watch, and I just feel very lucky that that's not something I have to deal with.
She sort of, to some degree, preferred that than actually going through trials, than going through parole hearings, putting her young self back then as well, just after this happened, and her whole family, and then obviously after like X amount of years, again going through this over and over again. So she said like she made peace with it, which I found super interesting because usually people, like the victims, their families, survivors, wants to see that person rot behind bars. Also from perspective of journalists, podcasters, like people covering the cases. Usually when we cover this kind of case, we would say that this person has chickened out. They were a coward, that they didn't want to serve the prison sentence, they didn't want to own up to what they have done and lived with their own guilt. They chose the easy way out. And this completely changed my whole perspective on it because I completely understand what she's saying. And there have obviously been multiple cases where I have covered where survivors are obviously just going again and again for parole hearings. They're like, what if he gets out? Like, my life is again in danger. Why am I going through this again? All of the emotions, all of the trauma, all of the PTSD. So I really wanted to just like strike up a conversation in the comments or just in general. What do you think about this? And should actually podcasters kind of look to change their opinion and take this into consideration as well when covering these cases? Because I find this to be so mind-blowing, and I will obviously now take it into consideration when I cover these cases. And when somebody just commits suicide, doesn't want to end up in prison and serve their sentence, I'm like, but do we actually ask, and why don't we ask the survivors in these cases and their families, how do they feel about this? So I feel like there is a whole gap there where TikTok might be actually the platform where we fill that gap in, or we actually get the answers from the victims, from survivors that we might not have had all the way up until now. And then when doing research, you have that as an option as well. Now enough of a freaking ramble. Let me give you the intro and then play that YouTube clip that is recorded on a different microphone, so it's gonna be a different sound. You're gonna love it. Listen. What did I put as an intro? Let's do it. Let's do the weird thing. Yeah. Martha Beck's need for love and Ray Fernandez's what? And Ray Fernandez's conman background will turn out to be a perfect match for a couple that plan to swindle women out of their wealth by all means necessary. This is a story of lonely hearts killers. Where is it to? I'm never ready. Never ready. Never ready. Who's never ready? All over the US with homemade bombs that killed 3 people and injured 23 more. His family will prove that the blood isn't thicker than water and will finally bring this serial killer to justice. What were his motives? Now, give me Maya. Now, Maya, give me the memory lane thing. Find the filter page. I know you have no editing skills, but find the filter. Give me that memory, and then play the YouTube video within the memory, as if like I'm reminiscing on it. Do it. Find the skills. I'm not eating today. There are plenty of prisoners that refuse to eat their last meals, and to those people I say, what the actual fuck? So yes, I will most definitely cover those as well. But today I'm structuring it a bit differently. I'm first gonna tell you about the person on a death row, then we're gonna have a more interactive experience. We're actually gonna go get the last meal, and then I will consume it, and then we just chit chat about the case and what happened after that last meal has been consumed. But yes, if you still feel lost here, this is the segment I do on Fridays, and it's called Last Meals, and it truly embellishes your weekend. So me, homegirl, have no skills, can't do like makeup and tell you about true crime, can't really do Jenga and knit for you. So what I do instead, I can eat. I realized that from a very young age for survival purposes and then for joyous purposes. So I use this segment to eat somebody's last meal. They have usually done a bad deed that landed them on a death row. Sometimes they cheat, sometimes they just serve the life sentence. But usually they have done a bad deed or a couple of bad deeds. And this is what landed them on this segment. I don't just eat their last meal, this is not just ASMR content. I tell you a story about the people behind them. This time I'm telling a story about 2 people, but in particular focusing on one. This is one of those murderous duos, and you might have heard about this if you are into true crime, but like me, possibly a lot of you don't know all of the details, and boy, the details are scandalous, especially for the time. But even during this research, I was like, yo, these 2 were on some next level thing. This case has everything. Today I'm talking to you about Martha Beck, who was one part of the duo of Lonely Hearts killers, Martha Beck and Ray Fernandez. We're focusing on the girl here. Girlfriend, we have a lot of information on her. A lot on Ray as well, but not as much, so let's dive in. The 2 scammers going around killing women through these Lonely Hearts ads that were popular in 1940s, 50s, and just getting away with it, robbing them, scamming them, and then living lavishly. But there is a darker background to both of these individuals. Beginning with Martha, she was born in 1919 in Florida, and a lot of her childhood is actually heavily speculated from the trial. So from the information that was passed on the trial, those speculations were that Martha was actually raped by her brother once she was young, and when she told her mother told her that she is lying. She didn't believe her, and she beat the shit out of her, basically. And ever since then, her mother would mock her. Like if Martha was to ever like a boy or anything, her mom would kind of like question her about it and mock her about it and just tell her like she will never ever have the opportunity to even date this guy. Which kind of turned up to be true, because from the early days she had a glandular condition, which basically made her overweight. So even at the age of 10, she was quite big and tall, her boobs were quite big, she just didn't fit in. As you can imagine, the kids were cruel, and the jokes have started, and Martha basically had no friends of her own age. Obviously, even after school, the problems continued because for the time it was super important, unfortunately, and I know how sexist this is, but for a woman to be skinny slash hot, again, for the standards of the time, in order to find a job. So obviously Martha really struggled with this, and she couldn't find a job as a nurse, which is what she studied. So instead she became the undertaker's assistant. And I think this is truly where the fascination with death comes into play, because she would kind of prepare female bodies for the burial, and she didn't really mind it. She still wanted to be a nurse, but she didn't really mind that job. But then, due to all of these struggles to find a job, she was like, okay, listen, fresh leaf, fresh page, I'm gonna move to California, try to find a job. And she moved to California to work as the army nurse. This is when I would say the lying began. The extreme lying, if you wish, because she gets pregnant and she apparently didn't know who the father was, or did know, but the dad didn't want anything to do with that. That's not super clear, but she started lying and she actually sent a telegram, remember those, to herself, as apparently as if it was from the dad of the kid, saying that they have died in the war. Because at the time, the cities were small, everybody mourned this with Martha, and they saw her go into hysterics. They're like, oh my god, now I'm gonna be a single mom, I need all the help that I need all the pity from these people. And I think this is when she started getting off on the fact that people actually cared, despite of her looks, despite of who she was as a person. The people actually cared and pitied her and wanted to help her, and she realized, like, hey, this might be the way forward. Then soon after her daughter was born, she meets this bus driver called Alfred Beck. Soon enough, she is pregnant with a second child, so this guy is like, okay, cool, let's marry you, whatever. Nothing is known about this guy. It's like we have his name and the fact that he was married to her for about 6 months. So they get married, divorced in 6 months, she gives birth to a son this time. Now she is in a situation where she is a single mother of the 2 children. So luckily for her, she results finding a job at the Pensacola Hospital for Children this time. So now she has a job, and you're like, okay, cool. She's finally moving on, she's gonna bring those kids up, everything is gonna turn out great. Of course not, nobody wins in these cases. Because she turned to illusions, fantasy novels, those romance novels, or those type of movies with the main character of the movies, Charles Boyer. He was apparently the hunk of the day. She was just fantasizing that one day a great man is gonna come around and turn her life around and save her. So yeah, she just completely didn't live in the reality, didn't really care much about the fact that she does have 2 kids and maybe the focus should be on that. Nope. And why I say that is because usually in these cases, every single thing I take as a red flag, right? So I was like, oh, this might be like the Angel of Death situation. By the way, if you're not listening to Dr. Death's 2nd season, please listen to it. I need to discuss it with somebody. That case triggers me, because I have like family members that have died of cancer. But that case, just the season 1 was great. This one, after every episode, I need to like have a meditation session. Okay, that's how much like that fucking whole case triggers me. So yes, I will probably cover it one day. But basically, where I was going with this is that when I heard Martha got the job at the hospital, I was like, oh my god, not the kids, it's hospital for the children, this is gonna turn sideways real soon. But it didn't, because Martha was actually really great as a nurse. So she was really good at her job, and her co-workers really loved her. She was actually promoted to like superintendent nurse, or whatever it's called, like just a year after working there. And she was really happy with that part of her life, obviously just then having money to bring up the kids. However, she still just yearned for like the Prince Charming to come along. So her colleagues, one day as a prank that she didn't appreciate later at all, but as a prank, she finds in the email the invitation to submit the ad for these Lonely Hearts ads, and she's like, oh, man, I might as well. She probably thought like, you know what, fuck it, like what's the worst that can happen, It might realize all of the Prince Charming dreams that she had from these novels and movies that she was just binging on. She places the ad in Mother Dineen's Family Club for Lonely Hearts. That was the section in the newspapers. And then every day she would come from work, because back then, obviously, for you to respond to that ad, you would need to respond to it via mail. So she would check the mailbox and be like, oh, yet another day. Why she thought she would get a response pretty quickly is because she left out her weight. That at the time, we just know so much about her weight. This research kind of like pissed me off on so many levels, even though she was the criminal here. But yeah, at the time she weighed about 250 pounds. So she left that out. Again, if you see the pictures of Martha Beck, like, she was not even obese, but I guess this was fat at the time. But what I find more concerning is that she left the fact that she has 2 kids out of that 10. I was like, that's a pretty important thing for a man to accept if you're looking for like a long-term relationship. But you know, again, what do I know? It's not like those kids are going to become an important factor really soon. On one of those days, all the stars have aligned for Martha. She comes back from work, she opens that mailbox and she sees a goddamn letter. She can't believe it. She's like, whoa, who the hell is this? And there is this guy called Ray Fernandez that has responded to her letter. He was at the time 5 years older than her. He has served in Spain Merchant Marine, was from Spain himself. But immediately up front, the way he has responded to the ad and described himself wasn't really super honest, you could say. He, you know, sent a picture of himself on which he had like a really fake bad-looking toupee because he was kind of half bald and half balding. He also forgot to mention that he had an injury and during that war that kind of damaged his frontal lobe, which is the lobe that highly affects your ability to deduce things, so it affects logics and learning, and that again might not result in him being the most reasonable man, making the most reasonable decisions. Of course, he also forgot to tell her that before Martha, he definitely posted multiple ads through this Lonely Hearts Club thing, and he managed to scam other girls, other women, of their jewelry, of their money, of their possessions. But Martha was swept away. She immediately sent a picture of herself back. Of course, she chose to send a picture with herself with multiple girls around her. This is like a bad Tinder profile picture. You know, when you were on Tinder and then you would swipe and every single picture of like however many they could choose was them with a group of friends, and I'm like, which one are you? Like, why do you do this? I understand you're ugly, but why do you do this? So Martha literally sent a picture. It was just her head poking from like the back of that picture with the multiple nurses. She's like, this doesn't do me justice. But luckily for Martha, Ray will not give 2 fucks about her body because he only cared for her body. And now when Martha did send him the picture of herself and, you know, they were just about to meet up, she was super excited. But even before they met up, Fernandez explained to her that he believes he has superpowers, technically. What would be your favorite superpower? I was leaning more towards invisibility when I was younger, but now I think more like teleportation, just, you know, transferring yourself straight up to another place would be sick. Yeah, COVID changed everything. Cool. Ray here thought that he had, and he deeply believed this, again, he smashed his head, it's fine. He deeply believed that he had superpowers where he would use voodoo magic to get himself a bird chick, to get himself a woman, and for that voodoo magic practice he needed a strand of Martha's hair. Martha of course was like, yeah, cut it all. Like, she probably sent him like a full-on envelope just with her hair. He was like, I really just needed like a strand, like I don't want you bald, like I'm bald for both of us. But sure, she did send him this. And he was like, cool, now with this piece of hair and whatever magic I'm doing, I can convert Martha as well as the other women into my sexual slaves because I have so much power over women. His actual words that I have read during this research, I'm not making this shit up, I cannot make this shit up. So he was to use this lock of hair to strengthen his power over them and to strengthen his supernatural control that he definitely possessed. And he would tell his friends that straight face. He would tell his friends that he, due to this voodoo magic, due to him being able to do all of this, his supernatural control, you heard it, he even managed to have sexual relations with women from greater distance. This man was onto something future, man. 2020 isn't there yet, but Ray Fernandez, our man, was. Obviously, you know, they would send a hair, he would now be deeply connected to the women, and would be deeply connected inside of them, and that's how it all works, right? Yeah, nobody taught this guy biology, no, nobody taught anybody anything to these people. No, but of course, super plausible. You believe it, right? Long distance relationships. How many things would have Ray Fernandez solved if he actually just committed to maybe developing the method of doing this? What would the method of doing this be, Maya? How do we advance to this level? Cool, moving on. They finally meet. And Ray didn't care, or like he didn't show that he cared about Martha's weight, about her biggest problem ever, because she could only talk about that. She was obsessed with how she looked. And of course, from the early days of this relationship, he didn't tell her that he was actually married before with this girl, Jane Thompson, who, again, he swindled off the money, then she died under mysterious circumstances, but not before she passed all of the inheritance to him, all of her will. And then he told other people that it was under different circumstances. So, of course, this is completely not built by lies. This relationship was immediately going to be great from the start. Nope, of course not. It was tumultuous, to say the least. And even after a couple of weeks, Martha actually decided to move to New York, so she moved with her kids and everything, and then soon after the two of them had an argument, and you'll know what the argument was about, but basically she had to return to Florida, and now she was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna return to my old job, right? Nope. Apparently, due to this scandal, due to her just going to have this promiscuous, non-marital relationship with a Latin lover, of course, the hospital was like, nope, you can't go back to this job. So she was desperate. She even attempted to commit suicide this time. And because she was still communicating with Ray, Ray was like, listen, the problem is not you. Like, I definitely want to have, like, super great relationship with you. The problem are truly those kids. Like, I just never wanted kids, you know. I don't want anything to do with these kids. The kids have to go. And she was like, say no more. Cool, I'll sort it out. You just think of a flat. You get a flat for us. I'll just drop the kids at the Salvation Army. So, she does. She just drops her 5 and 6-year-olds then to the Salvation Army. Is like, bye kids, bye, I'm gonna go with my Latin lover. Raymond, I'm yours. Now that Martha has moved in, now that he has her fully dependent, fully there, he knows he has brainwashed this woman, she is dependent on him, she would do anything, she just got rid of her kids. She can't turn back on that. Now is when he just basically opens like this little box and he's like, so, these are all the women that I have scammed, these are all the letters that I have sent. I have done this previously, so you have a chance to help out here. You know, there is a great opportunity, there's a great position that just opened up. And Martha was there, well, like, stuck now, right? Can't go back, don't have a job. Anyways, just got rid of my kids for this guy. So yeah, she was like, of course, anything for you, lovebird. Ray was, sat her down, obviously told her all of this. And he was like, so listen, my plan is you pose as my sister. Imagine the blow, just the blow. You're just there like pathetic already, so into this guy, like I want to get married to you. He's like, no. What we do is we'll never get married. Don't worry about it. You just pose as my sister, and then we're gonna go and scam these women that I might marry and might sleep with and sleep around. And she was like, okay, listen, that's cool. I'll fall for it, like I'll pose as your sister, but you can never consummate the relationship. It was like, sure, yeah. So for her, to ensure that he actually never consummated the relationships, that he never, had sex with these women, she would sometimes sleep in their bed. How would you explain? Please, just walk me through the process. Why was this never explained in court? Do you know how much I'm dying inside to read further information on this? How do you explain to your wife? It's like, oh no, my sister just sometimes, is too attached. She just sometimes sleeps in the bed with us. That's completely normal. There's totally no issues there. So of course these women quickly would realize that this is not the best relationship, but unfortunately for some it will be too late to get out of it. In 1949 they made a crucial mistake. Basically it was speculated that these two have killed even 17 women. It will be 3 murders that they will be charged with. The first one of those was the one of Janet Faye. Fernandez got engaged to Janet Faye. And obviously I know this is wild, but unluckily for Janet, she wanted to consummate this relationship that she had. They were just engaged. It was all going great. She was about to get married. Yeah, unfortunately for her, Martha was not having it. So she walked in on them one day having sex and she lost it completely, so red, smashed whatever the hell she saw first into Janet's head, and Janet just died on the spot. So both of them were now like, well, this is a doo-doo, this is some shit that we have now have to deal with, Martha, you fucking impulsive shit. So they put her body in a trunk and they bury her like under a closed space and then cement it at this rental place that they were staying in. And in the meantime, they were just cashing out her checks, using her money, while contacting her family. And they had typed up the letters to the family, being like, hey, everything okay, I'm married and everything is great. But unfortunately for them, they realized that Janet never owned a typewriter. She never learned how to type, never owned one, so immediately her family saw the red flags and saw through this. Now they realized that they have to skedaddle out of there before the justice catches up with them. So they moved to Michigan and they managed to charm this woman to let them stay in their flat. So her name was Delphine Downing and she had a 2-year-old daughter. So they were staying with her. Raymond was trying to, do his, charming self. It's like, oh yeah, she's just my sister. While Martha, you can see her seething in the background, dying inside. And on one night, Raymond actually overdosed Delphine on sleeping pills. And they realized she is dead. They didn't apparently want to kill a child at first, but unfortunately, because they're freaking monsters, they couldn't deal with a child crying for days. Martha tried to beat/strangle the child, but because she realized that's not super effective, then she submerged them under the water. Just on so many levels, a 2-year-old child, a grown-ass woman who worked as a nurse and had 2 own children of hers. Luckily for them, this one is going to be their downfall, because Delphine was a friendly, charming woman and people noticed when she was gone. So they sent the police to arrest Ray and Martha. But this article hated them more than I did. So it said, after the murders, they decided to go to the movies where they munched on popcorn and drank a gallon of soda. His rotund girlfriend, so I don't know if this is like a literal translation, because I have only heard rotundo or rotunda in Spanish, never in English, but sure. His rotund girlfriend, Martha Beck, 29, who weighed well over 200 pounds, lovingly brushed his thinning hair back on his head as he told police how they killed their last victims. I just love how much this person, whoever wrote this article, hated the living shit out of them. Not just that, but now moving on to the trial. The media, of course, took the wheel, and the papers were unforgivable. Obviously, this is a child's murderer. It did not help that she was not super attractive. So the papers called her fat, simpering, Big Martha, a 200 pounds bigger or rap, the giggling divorcee, wow, unattractive. The best one, a weird woman. I love how somebody was like, I'm gonna try to be politically correct for the time. It's 1914, Lisa, I'm gonna be political. She's just weird. She's just a tad weird. She just doesn't look like a normal person. So, of course, even with this, the jury went into that trial thinking they were guilty because of the media's portrayal. So, they stood no chance. And everybody was kind of speculating rather if they're gonna get death sentence and how long they're gonna wait for their deaths rather than like, oh, somebody's gonna announce them guilty. Like, they were like, yeah, this is gonna be a no-brainer. Like, yeah, we can make a verdict now, like the trial, save some money. And due to this pressure, and because of how gruesome these murders were and how much they tried to hide them, which obviously showed premeditation, post-meditation, whatever you're gonna call it, like just in cruelty and planning, they made a deal. So like the prosecution made a deal with the New York office for them to be transferred to be on trial in New York, and that was for one simple reason, and that was that Michigan had no electric chair. Now when they were on trial in New York, it's very visible probably as a juror or anybody in that courtroom that Ray lacked, he really hit that frontal lobe. He just lacked anything that induced any logic, because he admitted immediately on the stand, he was like, no, we actually killed 17 women, because he claimed, like, listen, like, this is my strategy. If I claim as many deaths you know, and they're in different states, there is more chances for us to be extradited, go back to Michigan, you know, just stay alive. I'm actually protecting Martha. Now you're like, oh, Martha, finally. I mean, she has done all of these bad deeds, but at least she got what she wanted. She wanted her Prince Charming. Think twice. Because, yes, he might have shouted, like, oh, I love Martha for the media. You know, what do you guys know about love? But then, as somebody who is really into statement analysis, his expressions of love for Martha don't really seem quite genuine to me. He said, I love her, it couldn't be anything else, which you don't add that if you just know you love somebody, like, because that means you are doubting, could it be something else? Because why would you even say that? You wouldn't add that extra bit, or you would say it isn't anything else, like, it's not anything else, not it couldn't be, because that kind of implies like you're thinking, could it not, like, is it anything else? You kind of sound like you're doubting yourself a little bit. But then Martha took the stand, and I mean, okay, first of all, she's talked about her childhood, maybe to like elicit some sort of empathy, but I'm not sure whether or not this is still a belief, like whether or not Martha lied from her early age, just considering how she continued to live. I wouldn't say so personally, because I think like she was deeply affected by her childhood, but there must have been like a juror or two that just thought like, no, she actually might be lying to us about like this sexual assault and stuff, because why would her mom not believe her? Always believe your kids if they report any form of sexual assault, please. But here is Martha's quote again, playing on this like, oh, we are the lonely hearts duo, like we love each other deeply, you can't like condemn us to death. We loved each other and I consider it absolutely sacred. You refer to the lovemaking as abnormal, but for the love I had for Fernandez, nothing is abnormal. And then this article continues. This is gonna be sexist and piss some people off, but it's just so insane that I have to read it out. Martha fidgeted in the stand, her large frame looking out of place in a wooden chair designed for smaller people. Designed for smaller people. Like, why is the chair designed for small people? This chair is designed for a big ass person. It's not designed for a dwarf. Why do you design chairs for small people? I just hated they would dig so much at her weight where her personality was shaped. And that her whole life was based around her weight and not the focus on the. It's her actual personality that's a problem. It's not the fact, like, I don't think Martha was ugly. I don't think that she was fat. I just think she had, like, super ugly personality. Like, that was her main problem, and a lack of focus on that, you know, like, contributed to all this. I just noticed that this thing is completely just turned the wrong way. It's not even looking at the skeleton, it's not looking at you, it looked at me, and we made eye contact. I care about your soul, skeleton. I have lost it. I have lost the plot. I'm talking to like fucking condiments on the table. Condiments. I'm talking to the freaking props. She also said, a request from Mr. Fernandez for me is a command. I loved him enough to do anything he asked me to. But I feel the jury really saw that there was just no empathy, no nothing of how she described the killing, especially the killing of Janet Faye. She kind of just matter of fact said like, well, actually my skills as a nurse made me like find really important to tie the tourniquet like around her neck to stop the blood from bleeding. So that's, you know, that's what we did. She just like matter of fact, just another day in the life. Like, this is what I do as a nurse. And you're like, you killed a child. You killed. How could you have killed a kid? Drowning a child. You have 2 kids of your own. Plus, you worked in a hospital for children. Like, you were good at this job. What the hell happened? So, after 11 days of trial and 12 hours of deliberation, the 12 members of the jury came into the court and they charged them with a guilty verdict for the first-degree murder. Actually, one of the jurors was kind of not convinced, so that's why even it took 12 hours of deliberation, because they thought that Martha was sane, but that Fernandez was the one who was instigating all of this. So they kind of believed it was more Fernandez than Martha, but obviously during this deliberation, they managed to convince this juror as well. So they were immediately processed and moved obviously to separate cells. Both of them were kind of in a solitary from the get-go because they knew like they were going to go to death row pretty soon. They weren't a couple that's gonna wait forever and ever. So Martha approved Alfred Beck on the visitors list, and she approved both of her children. Her children were 4 and 5 at the time. I think I said they were 4 and 5, like once she dropped them in the Salvation Army. Now that, I mixed it all up. That was 2 years before that, so they were like 2 and 3 of age. Even worse. Nothing makes it any better in this case. What is going on, sunshine? Sunshine. Now, you remember how I told you to hold the phone on Fernandez and his love for Marta? Well, that is because of what he did while on the death row. But listen, this is private information, okay? Don't tell Marta. The ghosts of this world, don't tell this to Marta, cool? Ray here continued writing to his first wife, whose name is Encarnacion, which, yes, is incarnation, just embodiment. Cool name, cool name. So he continued writing to her, and he would write, let me read this out, because, I think it's his translation because it does not sound right in English, so I think this is genuine translation from Spanish. Kisses and hugs to the children, and you will receive 1,000,000 kisses and hugs from the one who always will have you until the last second of my life. So yeah, he most definitely loved Marta until his last breath. I want to feel sorry. I want to feel sorry, but I feel sorry for the victims who had to die because of somebody's obsession and fixation on something that she just couldn't attain. I just hope one day, because my imagination is hard and I have like sometimes, like all these illusions about like better anything. And yeah, I just hope I don't ever go there. I never turn up that desperate to just completely lose the sense of logic and do it for nothing. For nothing. For a guy to steal from a death row, not right just to you, but no, he's still a crook. Once a crook, always a crook, man. And Encarnacion responded, and we don't know if she knew of his involvement with Marta, with any other women, but she said, again, this is a translation. Do you prefer me to fly to you and spank you for not writing, just as if you were a little child? All my love to you from your wife, Encarna. I want to see them in Spanish. I just want to see, they just mistranslate just for, like nobody's gonna look this up. Encarnacion, listen, if you have children, Encarnacion children, write to me, please. Write to me, send me the letters in Spanish. I just need it in my life. So, March the 8th, 1951, Marta has a good breakfast. That's not what we are eating today. She ate ham and eggs, and she then took a shower. I don't know why. Do they have to take showers before that? I personally would like, again, hopefully not doing anything that will end me on a death row anywhere, anytime soon. But yeah, personally, thinking about it, I would probably like to die clean, or just, thinking of going to sleep in a way. I think about these things a bit differently. And even on her last day, Marta was her ugly personality-wise self. So she wanted to spend her day with this matron that she preferred in prison, but no, then they scheduled somebody else to be on duty because, again, we are not listening to prisoners and their wishes, are we now, Marta? Deal with it, fucking loser. So she wrote an angry letter. Like, her last actions are that she wrote an angry letter to, like, the prison guards. She wrote, I do not appreciate it one bit, but I'm glad that no member of my family will know how hurt and misled my last day was. It hurts me deeply to realize that I have been wrong in thinking that there could be good in the state-paid employee. Marta Jewel, and then she gave her, like, prison number. Like, is that like when people sign their emails with like PhD or like Dr. This? Is that what I'm supposed to feel after reading this? Because I sure am not. And now we come to the last meal. So we're gonna go KFC to get the last meal. It wasn't KFC, but I'm cooking for this shit. So she just doesn't deserve any effort that goes into this. She just doesn't. So you're gonna accompany me to KFC right now. Do you want anything from KFC? Did you decide? I am back. I'm gonna become like a freaking KFC addict. Look at this. Look at how cute this is. I never eat at this place. So what is this? This is some popcorn. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna eat this first and then check out Marta Beck's last meal. So I have like some fillets because she didn't want wings. I'm gonna pretend to be a cook for a second and do some fries. Let's do it. Completely different person, totally different person. Hey, you newbie. Yeah, we have the last meal for the prisoner number 108594, Marta Beck. Bring it to her, please. Yeah. You're coming in as Marta, completely transformed. Wow, thank you so much. I came as a completely different person, clearly. Now I'm Martha Beck, and this is her last meal. So she ordered fried chicken, some fries, and some lettuce and tomato salad, just because, like, no drinks or nothing with this bitch. But she made sure to be particular about this. So for the chicken, not to have any wings, for it just to be fried chicken. It made it tiny bit more difficult. I spent about 15 minutes in KFC trying to nail this order because I don't go there regularly. So I was literally, luckily, this woman actually helped me out. I was like, listen, I need chicken, it's not wings. I need fries. And I need a salad. Is there like a meal? And then she was trying to figure it out. Hey, this is great. You gave me like the cute little thing. Is this what gets you eating into KFC? Okay, cool. Sideline. Such a cute little popcorn thing. Okay, cool. Let's continue with this. There's a bit more information to this case. For his last meal, the second part of this duo, Fernandez had onion omelette, also French fries, chocolate, and a Cuban cigar. So yeah, this is why I can't. The fire smoke detectors for the UK facilities are they're very easily triggered, just like Martha, so I couldn't do Fernandez's meal and just smoke a Cuban cigar, although that would be badass for the video. Not gonna lie. And I just love, also they probably hate this, but there were two other prisoners that were actually executed on that night, and they were executed before them. They're like, yeah, let's just show you that you're not really a big deal. So Fernandez went first, before Martha, and he was still dramatic and shouting, I want the world to know that I love Martha. What does the public know about love? But it was said that he was really panic-stricken. He was actually carried all the way to the electric chair. That's how, like, panicky and just frail he was. Martha, however, was not frail at all. I mean, after all, she had just had this delicious meal. She was full of strength. So she went, just followed by her matrons, and sat down at the chair, and then whoever wrote this article yet again had to mention that they struggled to fit her huge arm into this electric chair. Any chance they got. And she was pronounced dead at 11:24 p.m. And this guy that executed both of them, well, four of them actually, because this was the first quadruple murder since 1947. And this execution got $150 per person, so it was like, this was nice, all at the same time, sick. Just love how people view death penalty. They're like, business as usual. Came, picked up $600. 4 people are dead. Sick. Her last statement was, what does it matter who is to blame? My story is a love story, but only those tortured with love can understand what I mean. I was pictured as a fat, unfeeling woman. I'm not unfeeling, stupid, or moronic. In the history of the world, how many crimes have been attributed to love? But a lot of them, actually, Martha, you genius. Nobody ever said she was smart. Like, what kind of novels was she reading? She was into romance novels, like, there have been plenty of crimes committed due to love or whatever you wanted to call it, but unfortunately for her, she never knew it was one-sided. She never knew that if somebody portrays and pretends that you're his sister, maybe he's not just that into you. I know, wild. Her body was transported back to her hometown, where she just lies in the unmarked grave, and she was, well, survived by her children, who probably changed their names and everything since then, by Alfred Beck, her first husband, and by her mom as well. But that's the case of Martha Beck, and somewhat on Ray Fernandez as well. There is a lot on this story. I just tried to, sort of summarize it and condense it. And what can we tell about the person that ordered the last meal? I just wonder, was that even her fault, like, to order the salad again to just camouflage, or was it just her consciousness being like, well, they think you're fat already anyways, because just her weight was her main preoccupation her whole life. So she probably, even when ordering this last meal, was like, let me have salad on the side. Let me actually, like, make sure, I have this on the side. Martha, special case. Yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think about this case. Do you think without one, the other one wouldn't be committing crimes? Well, we both know Ray would be anyways. Do you think something else triggered it in particular? And most importantly, what do you want me to eat? Wasn't that so freaking fascinating? It's just one of the wildest cases. I was struggling so hard. I was laughing so hard at the quotes, at researching. And it was just, in the end, I was like, this is the perfect plug for the Nobody Wins merge, because truly nobody wins. Her whole life, Martha wanted just somebody to love her. They just wanted her fantasy fulfilled. And then she ended up just falling for the first person that came fucking along. That's the first mistake. And in the end, he ended up still in love with Encarnacion, which is still to this day the best fucking name. He will not convince me that it's not the best fucking name in any language ever. Just be like, why do British people not have names like Embodiment? A huge, huge gap in the market there. So yes, you can watch that and other Last Meals videos on Maya Quit Her Office Job YouTube channel. Plug, plug, yeah. Speaking of plugs, great segue for me to direct you again at my own merchandise at Nobody Wins shop. That's, yeah, the name of the line. So smartly named, based on two new designs and two others that have nothing to do with Nobody Wins, but they're just in the same category. TeePublic is still running the sales. They just control their own thing. I think they're doing it now for Black Friday, so you can get it for super cheap there. And then if you want like the high quality stuff like this, that would be Teespring, and they're like super comfy. Go for the comfy fit, hence, smartly named in that case. But to wrap it all around, remember how we started the episode, and then like remember, and now you're going into your next Zoom call, and you're like, whoa, where did this episode start? And it started with me talking about how inventive people have gotten with anything, with their content. They're just like, this is what works for me, what doesn't, and maybe I'm still just in the process of discovery what works, what does not. But I just beg you, I don't know, this week I just kind of wanted to go back to the advice that I would give. Usually it's kind of like the end of the year, and I'm like, okay, this last year, this time, you just personally, me, yeah, came back from a silent meditation retreat because you were just desperate. You were like the fucking depressed at work, you wanted to leave, and then you kind of after that retreat decided like, yeah, I'm gonna like, start working remotely, see if my soul is being lost a bit less after working from home. And sure as hell, yes, I stopped selling my soul to the devil and suddenly I started becoming myself again. So I just wanted to ask people, like, when you go into your next Zoom call, whether you like your job or hate your job, whether you're ambivalent to your job, just think about what you're doing on the side. First of all, that your job is not your life, because that is just sad and depressing, whatever your job is. Even if this was my whole freaking life, I would still not like to do it 24/7, because then I would just have no inspiration, nothing. There would be nothing left to say. Also, then it wouldn't allow me to find a different perspective on TikTok, for example. Before you go into your next Zoom call this week, I just wanted to remind people, find your creative outlet, whatever it is, you have it. Even if you're just like, no, actually, I am just a spreadsheet person, I'm just a numbers person, I don't have like any creative outlet, you do. You don't have to post content anywhere ever, but you still do have your creative outlet, whether it's journaling, whether it is writing, whether it is counting freaking calories, whether it is actually finding a new way to thinking about formulas and how do you actually present it and translate it to people who don't understand numbers. You filter into that little hole and then you expand it and find a language to communicate that passion of yours with other people. Then, read between the lines, improve on it, see what they actually want to see. Do they actually fully understand it? Can you further improve on it? Can you have like any other ideas? I'm still talking about the company, but I'm also talking about people actually making content on YouTube or podcasters or just in general. Expand your motherfucking horizons. If TikTok is going to be part of your research, let it be. If it makes you open your freaking mind and actually understand the topic better, that's it. Fuck it. I mean, most importantly, don't be a Martha Beck or Raymond Fernandez this week. And don't wear toupees, for fuck's sake. If you are a balding individual, listen, my brother is younger than me, he's getting bald, and he just shaved his head off. Because that's a normal fucking thing to do. You will get used to it. It might actually look decent on you. You might actually be growing, like, it might actually look decent. Don't put toupees on, for the love of God. Or just get enough money, get Elon Musk rich, and then do those hair transplant things that makes it look like it's your own hair. Yes, this is now off the rails, so I'm gonna escort myself out. I'm gonna wish you all a happy Monday. I'll see you all back here Friday. Be here, be here. It's like an insane case. I actually can't wait to tell it to people. So until then, keep making this Monday, this whole week, this whole world a better place, one motive at a time. Oh, bye, fuckers. Oh yeah, the outro tune, the intro tune, the all of the tunes. Okay, if anybody creates a dance to this, post it on Instagram. I'll do it. I'll retweet it. Let's create a dance to it. Let's create a dance to it.